Welcome to a new series. My name is Sonia Walker, and this is where we step away from surface-level summaries and take the time to understand the people behind the legends. This series explores the heroes and villains of Suikoden 2, not as icons, but as children, friends, soldiers, and survivors. This is a story about war, power, and the moments that decide who we become. And we're starting at the very beginning, with the boy who never wanted to be a hero. This is episode 1. This is Riou. Before the war, before the runes, before history ever noticed him, Riou was just a child in Riou village, a small, quiet place tucked away from borders and banners. A place where life was simple. Days were spent training with wooden spears, helping with chores, listening to stories by the fire. Riou grew up under the care of Genkaku, a former hero, a man who had already seen what war truly costs. Genkaku did not raise Riou to be a conqueror. He raised him to be kind, to protect the weak, to never draw his blade unless there was no other choice. Riou trained every day, not to become famous, but because it was expected, because discipline was a way of life. He learned to fight defensively, to wait, to read his opponent, to endure rather than overwhelm. Even then, Riou's strength was never aggression, it was restraint. And always beside him was Jowy Atreides, loud where Riou was quiet, quick where Riou was cautious. Together, they balanced each other. They dreamed of leaving the village someday, not for glory, but for freedom. They believed the world would make room for them. Neither of them understood yet. The world does not make room, it takes. Genkaku warned them. He spoke often of war, not as an adventure, but as a machine that devours boys and calls them heroes when it's done. Riou listened. Jowy listened too, but they heard different things. Riou learned caution. Jowy learned fear. When the Highland Kingdom's draft came, there was no choice. Children were handed spears, promises were made, and lies were prepared. Riou village said goodbye to its sons, not knowing most of them would never return. The massacre was not an accident. It was strategy. A false flag operation meant to justify war. Highland slaughtered its own youth and blamed the city-states. This is where innocence ends. Riou survives by chance, pulled from the river, left alive when he should not have been. Jowy survives by understanding something terrible. Power decides who lives. The rune of beginning chooses them both. One rune, split in two. Riou receives the bright shield rune, a power of protection, healing, preservation, a reflection of everything Genkaku tried to teach him. Riou does not conquer, he does not dominate, he stands, he endures, he protects. Jowy receives the black sword rune, a power of destruction, control, finality, the ability to end things. History had already told this story once. 2 brothers, 1 rune, endless war. The tragedy is not that fate repeats itself. The tragedy is that people do. Riou does not rise as a leader because he seeks power. He rises because people trust him, because he listens, because he doubts, because he refuses to treat lives as numbers on a map. In a war where cruelty is rewarded, Riou's compassion becomes a weapon. Jowy chooses a different path. He believes peace requires control, that sacrifice is inevitable. that someone has to become the villain, even if that villain is him. Riou never stops seeing him as his brother, never stops reaching out, even when it costs him everything. At the end of the war, Riou faces Jowy one final time, sword raised, world watching. And the question is no longer about victory, it's about identity. Is peace worth killing the person you love? There is no perfect answer, only consequences. Riou does not end war. He does not save the world forever. What he does instead is refuse to surrender his humanity. And in a world built on blood and banners, that is the rarest kind of strength. Next time, we follow the boy who chose power instead, Jowy Atreides. I'm Sonia Walker, and this is Suikoden 2.